and welcome to Good Morning UK Have Your Say, a Force for Good's mid-morning Wednesday show, coming to you live from our nerve centre here in the heart of the great British city of Glasgow, with me, your host, Alistair McConnachie. Thank you very much for tuning in, folks, and it's great to see Linda is already here from southeast London, where the weather doesn't seem to be too great this morning, although it's nice here in Glasgow. Good to see TC as always, all fellow Brits who care, because this is the programme where we care about being British, where we love being British, where we love the United Kingdom, and we want to stay together. Good morning, Derek. Good to see you. And Frankie also. And Tommy. And Ryan. Good, Ryan. I'm keeping well, thank you. And I hope you are too. Good to see Bill also. And Mr. Mawson says hello. Well, folks, please do send in your comments. Now, if Facebook is asking you, let StreamYard see your comments. Please do let StreamYard see your comments. Just click yes, that enables us to see them as well. Okay, we are in Glasgow and it is a forceforgood.uk is the name of our website of our organisation. Now, folks, it is 8 weeks away from the 6th of May, what we are calling the Scottish Ejection, not the Scottish election, the Scottish Ejection, because it is going to be on the 6th of May where we are going to purge the Sturge. We're going to give Humza the heave. We're going to put Swinney in the binny, along with Angus Robertson, the soon-to-be forgotten one. So folks, pass that on. It's the Scottish Ejection is coming up on the 6th of May, and let's make it a memorable day. A memorable day. Marwina says, I'm banned on Facebook for 3 days. I don't know what you said, Marwina, but talking about banning, we're going to get to that today, because hello Ford and Gail, and always good to see Sandra as well. Cheers, Will. We will keep up the good work. Now, today I've got some bad news for you, because it is the day when Holyrood is going to vote on the anti-free speech law. Now, this is something that's been coming up. Well, it was announced early last year, and it's finally made its way through the committees. Thank you for that comment, Simon. Peter, yes, indeed. Morning, Alistair, from Jose. Keep up the great work. Thank you. Now, yeah, last year they had a public consultation on this, what they're calling euphemistically the hate crime bill, and Force for Good made our submission to it, and that was published on the parliamentary website, and you can also see it at our blog site, forceforgood.uk/blog, where we have an article up there, Free Speech for Scots, and we basically laid out the objections, some of the objections to it. There's plenty of objections to it. Now, it worked its way through stage 2, which is the committee stage, where a small committee sits about and deliberates upon it, and make some wee changes here and there, and today is going to be presented to the Parliament for the Parliament to vote upon. And as Yvonne says, this is scary, and no doubt the Greens will support it. Of course, the Scottish Cabbage Party will unfortunately support it. And who else is going to support it? I'm afraid to say that probably a lot of Liberal and Labour people will also support it. And so it's going to get passed, unfortunately, today. I don't think there's any question about that. If it was turned down, it would be a wonderful thing for Scotland. It really would be. But how likely is that, given our current intake of MSPs across the board? The only party that's really been objecting to this has been the Conservative Party. The others have been generally going along with it, making minor tweaks here and there. So it's likely to get passed today. So we're actually entering a new phase of this. We're entering a phase not where we're trying to stop it, but where we're going to have to punish all those MSPs who vote for it. All of them, regardless of political party. If they vote for it, they have to be punished, which means that we don't vote for them at the Scottish election. And especially, of course, the Scottish Cabbage Party and the SNP Party. So I'm just going to lay out some of the things that we need to do about that. And as I say, we're 8 weeks away from the big day. 8 weeks away from the big day. And we can't really have these people continuing to lord it over us. So we're talking about the Great Scottish Ejection. Hashtag Scottish Ejection is what we're looking at. Okay? That's our name for the 6th of May, the Scottish Ejection. We're trying to popularise that on social media and on Twitter, because the thing is, reality follows those sorts of things. Okay, you don't just accept reality, you have an ability to change reality. So when we start talking about the Scottish Ejection, then in fact what comes to pass is in fact the Scottish Ejection, and we get rid of all of these people. And that's easily done. And we can even get rid of Humza, and I'm going to explain in a few moments how we can get rid of Humza, because Humza is vulnerable. In his arrogance, he thinks he's not, but he is for plenty of reasons, which I will get to. So we have to get Humza out, because he is the one. We need to give him a metaphorical spanking, okay? We need to pull down his trousers, bend him over, and spank him for doing this to us, okay? Metaphorically speaking, obviously. But Humza has to get a big spanking for what he's been doing to Scotland. And he will get a spanking because he's going to lose his seat. He will lose his seat here in Glasgow Pollock, okay? If I have anything to do with it, he will lose his seat, and I'll be doing my best to get this guy out, because he is he's been a disgrace, an absolute disgrace to our values here in Scotland. You know, Scotland has a long tradition of, well, we invented the Scottish Enlightenment, right, in the 1700s and 1800s, and we had all these great thinkers who were looking at applying reason and rationality to everything. And now we've gone the other way, back into a sort of totalitarian mindset. And we cannot be having that, because that is against the traditional values of Scotland. So if you are a true Scottish patriot, as we all are, then you can see that people like Humza and everybody else who's involved in this is in fact going against the greatness of our Scottish traditions and our values. What we've got with these people is what's called the totalitarian impulse. A totalitarian impulse. And it has to stop, and we have to go back to freedom of speech and freedom of action and freedom of protest. And that's another thing that we'll be getting to in this program, is how, in fact, the freedom of protest has been taken away from us under the guise of public safety. And if the politicians can keep this going on for as long as possible, then they will. Consider this. The politicians are going to be in Holyrood today voting to ban our freedom of speech at the same time as they have effectively banned political protest outside the building. Okay? So you should not be able, in a democracy, you should not be able to make laws at the same time as you ban political protest against those laws. Okay? Making laws and protesting the making of laws need to go hand in hand. Okay, they need to be together. The makers and the protesters together peacefully in a democracy. When the makers can make law and the people are not able to protest it, then that's not actually a democracy. It might seem like a democracy and nobody is, everybody's getting fed and society seems to be ticking over, but democracy is not actually functioning as it should, because the right to protest the making of the laws has been effectively banned by these coronavirus restrictions. They don't actually say that political protest is banned, they simply say that you can't gather in more than numbers of more than 2 people. Okay, so effectively they've banned it. However, I'll get to something that we're going to be doing today, later today, and keep an eye out for that. I'll get to that later in the programme. So let's have a wee look at some of your comments. And Alan says the police don't have the ability to deal with this waste of time, Bill. That's absolutely true. They don't. If they are going to be told that they have to investigate everything that Alistair McConnachie has said, then they're going to have to take on another 10,000 officers. Christopher says, could not agree more about Humza. The SNP have also meddled with the concept of legal corroboration, which is a very dangerous precedent. Nicola Sturgeon and our Deputy Minister is heading for a vote of no confidence. I do hope you're correct, and I do hope that these inquiries that are going on at the moment, Adam, find that she has breached the ministerial code, and if she has, then I believe that she will have to resign, and if she doesn't resign, then she will suffer at the polls as a consequence. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Sandra says, exactly. And Ryan is pointing out something that's also been added to the bill since we investigated it last summer, and this is the criminalisation of conversations within one's own home, which is something that one should have expected, as Ryan says here, during the former USSR. How did it come to this? Okay, and so this is basically if you sit around the family table or you're at home or something and you say something that one of your uptight relatives doesn't like and doesn't like you as well, they can report you and the police will have to investigate it. Now that's very, very bad, and as Ryan says, that's just like the worst of what we've heard of, the USSR. So that's going through as well, and Humza thinks it's important. But what he doesn't realise is that all of these things are covered anyway. If you're sitting at home and you threaten somebody violently, not sitting at home, if you openly threaten somebody, or you urge other people to break the law, these things have always been crimes, the crime of incitement. And you will get done for that, quite rightly, because if you advise somebody to break the law, then that is almost like a criminal act in itself. So if you advise somebody to burn down somewhere, that's a crime. That's always been a crime, and you will get convicted for that, and you'll get a criminal charge. So these serious incitements have always been covered by the law. You don't actually need anything else on top of that. Anything else on top of that is simply a political act intended to suppress usually criticism of a particular people or ideologies or lifestyles. And Christopher says, yes, it's just simply a charter to bring malicious allegations. And this was pointed out actually in an article which appeared in the Sun on Sunday, and I'll just read out a little bit of it here. And it somebody called Lucy Hunter Blackburn of policy group MBM, I don't know what that stands for, told the Scottish Sun on Sunday, the bit that is really not addressed properly and doesn't look like it's going to be is how you stop it having this chilling effect on speech in general, because people are going to be afraid of what's going to happen to them. She added, the people this will get used against are much more likely to be working class, the people who normally get caught up in the criminal justice system. And that's so true. That's so true. And the article goes on, some fear that cops could face a barrage of bogus reports, perhaps leading to innocent people having their laptops or phones seized as they are investigated. And that's so true as well. The cops can just turn up and take away all your electronic equipment for absolutely no reason other than that somebody has said that they don't like something that you've said. And it also muddies the water between what's actually funny and what's malicious as well, because it puts a brake on people just being amusing and being funny about stuff for fear that somebody's going to be offended. It's really serious, but at the bottom of it is an attempt to control speech in order to control thought, in order to control the political reality of the day. So, folks, it's 10:48. I'm going to come back to Humza in a minute, because this is the big news of the day, and I'm going to continue to talk about that. But first, what I'm going to do at this point is give you our quick This Day in British History, because we love our British history, because it is the past that informs the present, that helps us to create the future. Now, on this day in British history, the very first Prime Minister from Scotland passed away. Okay, and he was also, some people say, the first ever Tory Prime Minister of Great Britain as well. He passed away this day on the 10th of March in 1792. The first Prime Minister of Great Britain from Scotland, and the first ever Tory Prime Minister at a time when the Tories were a faction of the Whigs. And his name was John Stuart, the 3rd Earl of Bute, who was born in Edinburgh. Stuart, S-T-U-A-R-T, John Stuart, 3rd Earl of Bute, passed away this day in 1792, and he was the first Prime Minister of Great Britain from Scotland. He didn't have a very particularly long time in his prime ministerialship. It was just under a year, but he is notable for having negotiated the Treaty of Paris, which ended the 7 Years' War, which was a war between Britain and France. And after he stopped being Prime Minister, he continued in the House of Lords, and he's buried in St Mary's Chapel in Rothesay on the Isle of Bute. That's John Stuart, the 3rd Earl of Bute, and I think I have a photograph of him here. Let me just share the screen to show you. That's the chap there, John Stuart, 3rd Earl of Bute, first ever Prime Minister from Scotland, and there's been quite a few ever since. And he passed away on this day. on this day. He was also, many say, the first Tory Prime Minister of Great Britain as well, before the Tories were actually a political party and when they still remained a faction of a larger movement called the Whigs. John Stuart. So yeah, Scots have played a considerable role in British history, indeed creating much of it, and we love to highlight those points in our daily broadcasts on Facebook, our daily posting on Facebook and on Twitter and on Instagram. So if you can, if you're watching on Twitter, please retweet this with a comment, a positive comment, and we will then retweet your retweet and get you out to 26,500 people. That's coming up. Alan says, whatever happened to the stunt you hinted at possibly doing the other week? That's coming up this afternoon. Yeah. At 2:15 we're going to do a live broadcast, just myself and a colleague, because that's all that we're allowed. And we'll be outside. We'll be somewhere. I can't say where at the moment, but it'll be a 45-minute broadcast, and we are going to be laying into Humza. Believe me, we're going to be laying into Humza. Giving him a metaphorical spanking. So that's this afternoon, about 2:15. Check out our channels, please. Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We'll be broadcasting across them all this afternoon. Ryan just putting in a good word there for George III and his Prime Minister Lord Bute were men of impeccable service, integrity and duty. That's right. The establishment doesn't like George III. They're always mocking him because, claiming he was mad and all that kind of stuff. But it was a lot to do with the fact that he was a great British patriot for a good part of his life, until at the end when he did suffer some mental issues. But otherwise he was a really strong British patriot, and that's why he tends to get a bad rap among the fashionable. But no, we love George III, and we've been at his palace in Kew Gardens, which I would recommend to anybody. Very nice place, Kew Gardens, where George III and Queen Charlotte lived. Very nice place. Gifuser says, lay right into him. We will, and we're going to lay right into anybody who supports it as well, because it's a complete joke. Derek says, good luck this afternoon. Yeah. Now, Bill says, where are the cool earphones today? Well, the thing is, we use the earphones when we're interviewing somebody. Now, we had somebody booked in at 11 o'clock, but we heard that they were not likely to be able to make it. So I'm afraid that it looks like we're not going to have somebody today. We're not going to have somebody today who is going to be a guest, unless the person is able to come back in between now and the end of the program. We're hoping so, but at the moment it doesn't look like it. Aye. Well, you see, Adam's saying here, the latest polls show that no is at 52% and yes is at 48%. This is the fourth or fifth poll which puts support for the Union ahead of Scottish independence. Stuff like this programme is making Scots realise the true colours of the Nationalists, especially the SNP. Thanks. Well, it's absolutely true, Adam. We need to get these figures way down. The Nationalist figures way down and our figures way up. We've always said that there's probably about 20 to 25% hardcore Scottish nationalists in Scotland. There always has been and possibly always will be. But there's a floating 20% there, which is really just looking for inspiration and for good ideas and for hope. And at the moment, hitherto, they have seen it through the Scottish National Party. But what we're trying to do with our programme, and what other Unionists are trying to do as well, is to is to talk up the value, of the United Kingdom, because it is our nation of unions and our nation of families is a very valuable creation. It's a precious creation that's come about through time. And basically, to quote Neil Oliver, here in the UK we live in a wonderland, protected by the rule of law, free from oppression, the sort of place the tattered outcasts of the earth tell their wide-eyed children about. We are so spoilt, we are throwing stones inside our magical dome. I've begun to think that for those of us born since the end of the Second World War, this unreality we have enjoyed has come to seem like something that just happened, that has always been and always will be. But what will it take before we realise what a precious place this Britain is? When will we see it as others do, as an elegant cruise liner, afloat on a storm-tossed, shark-infested sea? Places like this don't just happen. This Britain is the product of millennia of strife, and it's a safer, better place to be than anywhere else on earth. And that's Neil Oliver from the Sunday Times Scotland on the 13th of November 2016. And that's quoted in our wee book for the Union, which you can get at our website, aforceforgood.uk. Just go along to the shop along the top, click on that, and you'll get our wee book for the Union. It's only a £5 and it sells extremely well. Now, I'm going to give you the competition question just before the top of the hour, and the competition question is based upon our This Day in British History. And I said what was the name? What I said, I explained that on this day, the first ever Scottish Prime Minister of Great Britain passed away, and arguably the first ever Tory Prime Minister of Great Britain as well. And what was his name? And the prize is this little box of mints. Previously, we've had a box of mints that had a Spitfire on it, and then we had a box of mints that had a London bus on it, and this is just a box of mints that has a Union Jack on it, and it's kind of, the tin is beveled, is that the word? To make it look like the Union Jack's flying. It's very nice. Lovely wee tin. And that's from Stuart's of Scotland, and we've got that to give away to the first person who sends us at that email address, contact@aforceforgood.uk, the first person who tells us what the name of the man who passed away today was. He passed away today on the 10th of March 1792, the first Prime Minister of Great Britain from Scotland and the first ever Tory Prime Minister, at a time when the Tories were a faction of the Whigs. We'll be announcing the winner of that at the bottom of the hour, just before we finish. Now, to get back to Humza Yousaf and how we are going to get rid of this guy, right? People say, Alistair, have you looked at the voting figures and so on? How can this be? Let me tell you, okay? In 2011, Humza Yousaf was elected as a 26-year-old to Holyrood, and he was elected on the list. Now in Scotland we have two votes. The first vote for your constituency MSP, and the second vote is a proportional representation vote for the list candidates who represent the region, which is made up of several constituencies. So he got in by proportional representation because he was top of the Glasgow regional list for the SNP, but nobody knew who he was. In 2016, he stood again. This time he stood in the Glasgow constituency of Pollock. But he had an insurance policy. He was also on the regional list. So that meant that if he didn't win his constituency, he would get in on his regional list, so he hoped. As it turned out, he won the constituency. He won Glasgow Pollock. He beat Labour in a surprising victory that's difficult to explain, but I will explain it in a minute. He got a majority of 6,500, which is a big majority in Glasgow Pollock. Now, this year around, in his arrogance, he thinks he's going to get in again in Glasgow Pollock, so he's not standing on the region. What that means is if he loses in Glasgow Pollock, he's out. Okay? He's got no insurance policy. There's no chance of him getting in on the list system. He's going to lose his seat entirely. So wouldn't it be justice for the Justice Secretary for him to lose his Glasgow Pollock seat? And some people say, is that likely? Well, let's at least try to make that happen, because that's what he deserves. Okay, that's what he deserves. He deserves to lose his Glasgow Pollock seat. Now, how did he get such a big majority last time? Well, in 2016, the SNP were riding an absolute wave of support. Now, so he was able to sit on top of that wave. He was able to sit on top of that wave and get elected that way. The second reason he got elected was because nobody knew who he was. Okay, he was basically just this MSP standing for the SNP, so he was still an unknown in 2016, really, for most people anyway. And he was riding this wave. Well, this time around, there's no excuse for not knowing who he is. We know him very well. We know him too well. And as for the SNP, well, they're not so much riding a wave as drowning in a cesspit of their own effluent. And so things are not on his side at the moment, and especially if this thing goes ahead today and he brings in this anti-free speech thing, it doesn't matter who you are or what tendency you are or anything like that. You're not going to like that. Okay, that's a self-inflicted blow that he's made. However, there's probably another reason why he got in Glasgow Pollock, and the reason is because of the incredibly low turnout. Okay, wait for this. In 2016, in Glasgow Pollock, the turnout for the constituency was 45.8%. Okay, that's 4% less than half. So the majority of people in Glasgow Pollock did not vote at all. Which is terrible, really, when you think about it. It's a derisory turnout. 75% of the electorate of Glasgow Pollock did not vote for Humza Yousaf. Okay, he got in on 25% of the entire electorate. So what that means is if we can get the turnout up in Glasgow Pollock, there's a very good chance that Humza will in fact be looking very vulnerable. Very vulnerable indeed. Now, all of this also depends upon, well, who is his opposition? You know, in 2016, it was Joanne Lamont who was standing against him, and she fell victim of the general support that the SNP was getting at that time. As I say, they were riding this wave. And she is unfortunately retiring this year, so it's not her. It's not her who is standing. So at this stage, we don't know who the Labour Party candidate is going to be against Humza Yousaf. Okay? But I would suggest that to this Labour Party candidate that they could be pushing at an open door if they are the complete opposite of Humza Yousaf. Okay? If you're the Labour Party candidate, you better be good. Okay, if you want our support, and we can deliver support for you, if you want our support, you better be good. Now, what that means is you better not be going along with anything that he does. You better not be agreeing with Humza on anything. okay? If you are like pro the anti-free speech law and you're trying to stand against Humza, then what is the point of you? What is the point of you? Okay? But if you stand up strongly against Humza as a strong Labour Party candidate and say this free speech, this hate speech law is a disgrace, it's anti-free speech, Humza's to blame for this, we need to get this guy out, he's been a disgrace. If you can really distinguish yourself as apart from him, okay, then you will be in with a chance of beating him. And you're going to have to want to beat him as well, okay? And you can do this if you're the Labour Party candidate, because Labour always held this area. They always held this area until very, very recently. And they lost it just because of the general wave of SNP support that there had been, but also because of the derisory turnout. The derisory turnouts across all the constituencies in Glasgow, and especially in Humza's constituency, where in 2016 less than 46% of the electorate voted. Appalling. Appalling. And you know, we always say this, like the SNP will say, oh, Westminster's not representative. Well, if you look at the turnouts of the last 5 Westminster elections and the turnouts of the last 5 Holyrood elections, the turnout at Westminster is way above the turnout for Holyrood. And we've done articles on this on our site as well. So Humza can be beaten, that's the good news, and he has to be punished. He has to be beaten, he has to lose his seat, because he has to be punished for what he is doing to Scotland and what is going through the Scottish Parliament today. He has to be punished, okay? And we punish him by making sure he loses his seat democratically and he gets mud on his face. And this can be done. This can be done. We can give Humza the heave. We can get Humza out, okay? But it requires the people of Glasgow Pollock to vote him out. And it also requires the people who are standing against him to distinguish themselves as apart from him. Because if you just seem like you're just part of the whole system, part of the whole crew just going along with all of this, then what's the point in voting for you, quite frankly? You need to stand up strongly against Humza on these matters. And Humza knows that. That's why he's panicking at the moment. You know, he is panicking because he knows he's not sitting as pretty as he might like to pretend he is sitting. Now, so I spoke there about the importance of voting. Now, the vote is on the Scottish Ejection, the Great Scottish Ejection, as we're calling it, is on the 6th of May. Now, many of you will know whether or not you're registered to vote. But if you're not registered to vote, you must be registered to vote by midnight on Monday, the 19th of April. And you can, if you're not registered to vote, then you can register to vote at the government website, gov.uk/register to vote. I'll just put up that link here. If you're not registered to vote, that's where you can register to vote. Now, if you know people who are on our side and you know they're not registered to vote, you need to get these guys, please, to register to vote. Do what you can to get them registered. Help them even fill out the form if that's necessary, because some people might not even want to do that. So if you can help people fill out a form to register to vote, please do so. And please encourage people to vote, because it is our democratic right. And unless we vote these guys out, then we're going to continue to get more of the same. So you have to be registered to vote at the Great Scottish Ejection coming up on the 6th of May by midnight on Monday, the 19th of April. And if you want a postal vote, and we don't like postal voting, but if you want a postal vote, then you have to apply for a postal vote by Tuesday the 6th of April. Okay, that's less than a month away. You have to apply for a postal vote if you want to vote by post by 5 p.m. on Tuesday the 6th of April. And you can do that also. You can print out a postal request form from that site that I just gave you there at government.gov.uk/register to vote. And so, you know, time is approaching, time is coming up now, it's coming up fast, and we're into that field. Now, we'll know everybody who's standing on March the 31st. That's when nominations close. Nominations close on Wednesday, March the 31st. And then it'll be like 5 weeks straight into the campaigning, which is going to be restricted in many ways because of the COVID situation. But it's going to be a good time, an exciting time, and hopefully a time when we can in fact eject a lot of these folk. Now, you need to be registered early if you're going to vote by post. Around in the second week of April, the postal ballots will be coming out and arriving on the doorstep sometime in the second week of April. And a lot of people are going to vote then and forget about it for the next 4 weeks. So the campaign really begins now, as it were, for many of us. And yeah, try to get others registered. If you've got teenagers, okay, if your teenage children are 16 by the 6th of May, then they do have a right to vote in Scotland. Whether you think that's right or wrong, I don't know, but 16-year-olds, if you're 16 on the 6th of May, you do have the right to vote. So if you've got children who are not registered, who are going to be that age, get them registered to vote, okay? Because at this Scottish election, basically anybody who's 16 and over can vote. As we've said many times, the Westminster devolved the franchise, unfortunately, to their bitter enemies. They devolved the franchise to the SNP, and the SNP have essentially just changed the franchise so 16-year-olds can vote. And you don't even have to be a British citizen to vote. If you're resident in the country, you can vote as well. Which is wrong. You know, you should at least be a citizen to vote, for crying out loud. Anyway, be that as it may, get registered to vote. That's the important thing. And we're going to be pushing this registration of voting as well. Get registered to vote, because so many people are not registered to vote. I have conversations with lads and they're like, oh yeah, I hate Nicola Sturgeon. And he goes, well, who'd you vote for? He goes, oh, I never vote. Well, come on, mate, you know, you got to vote. That's the only way you're going to get her out. So that requires being registered, all right? And it's an easy enough task to get registered if you're not registered to vote. Sandra says, country before party, people, it has to be done. Forget tribal voting and party loyalties. We need to save Scotland from these corrupt, incompetent charlatans. Yes. Bill says, have you seen the SNP has registered lots of postal vote websites that direct to the SNP website? Indeed, we saw that, Bill. And it just shows they're always looking for the main chance. You know, they're always, what can we do? So they create websites like, you know, howtovote.com, and you click on that and it redirects you. You end up at the SNP website. Yeah. They're doing that because it's not illegal, apparently, but they're always thinking, you know. And if you've ever had any dealings with your local MSP or MP, you'll be on their database. And what they're also doing is they're sending out letters to you with a postal vote application form already in it. Somebody received one recently and they're going to send it to us so we can see exactly what it looks like. But they are really pushing it, and of course, as we've said, they're really pushing the postal votes, which is a great pity. Bill says you can actually register from 14 years old. That's possibly correct, Bill. Yeah, although you can't vote until you're 16. Christopher says, being not registered to vote is like not making a will. It makes every opinion and intention null and void. Aye. Yes, what would Lord Bute think if he was still alive today? He'd be aghast with what has become of Scotland at the behest of the SNP. He couldn't imagine it. He wouldn't be able to imagine it. He'd be like, what? Humza who? What's he doing? He's going to stop you having your free speech? Oh, I don't understand that at all. There's something not right there. That's what he'd be saying. He'd just be... he couldn't visualise it. He'd be like, what? Oh. Time moves on, doesn't it, really? Goodness me. Ryan again. Contrast the First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, an individual mired in corruption and skullduggery, to that of Lord Stuart, the first Earl of Bute. A man with whom, in cooperation with King George III, attempted to purge the political class of its corruption. Oh, well, Derek says that, that's interesting. Derek says the Scottish Conservatives are doing the same with postal votes. Oh well, they've cottoned on then. They've cottoned on. There's an idea. Piers Morgan should stand against Humza. Yeah, well, Piers Morgan apparently got thrown out of his job at Good Morning Britain yesterday, and he was going to be the guest on the show, and I was going to ask him if he'd like to co-present Good Morning UK. I'm only kidding. But wouldn't that be good? Aye. Well, let's see if anybody has won the prize. Now, we do have a winner. The question that I mentioned to you was what was the name of the person who died on this day in 1792 on the 10th of March, who was the first Prime Minister of Great Britain from Scotland and the first Tory Prime Minister. And that was John Stuart, the 3rd Earl of Bute. And the winner, I am pleased to say, is somebody that I'm just going to write this up here, because we do have a winner. And the winner of this is Michael Dixon. Congratulations, Michael, for coming to us with the right answer, which was John Stuart, the 3rd Earl of Bute, died on this day. First Prime Minister of Great Britain from Scotland and first Tory Prime Minister. Thanks very much, all the people there who sent in their correct answers. But Michael was the first just to pip everybody else at the post. So thanks for that. Thanks for your engagement. Michael, if you could please send us, by that same email, send us your address and we'll get that in the post to you forthwith, along with a copy of our latest Union Heart for you to enjoy. So thanks very much for that, folks. Thanks very much. Now just checking other comments that have come in here. Yeah, well, good show this morning. I'm hoping that our guest who wasn't able to make it today will be able to come in next week. Now, we are A Force for Good is going to be out again this afternoon, and we're going to be doing a live broadcast for about 45 minutes, and that's going to be from about 2:15 or thereabouts. At the moment, we have to keep the location under wraps for various reasons, but as soon as it's out there. And I'd ask you, please, if you do watch it today, please do share it, because we're going to be talking about a lot of the stuff that we've just been speaking about how Humza is vulnerable, how we're going to get this guy out, we're going to give him the heave-ho, and we're going to make him get a proper job. You know, get a proper job. What could Humza do as a proper job? He could be a villain in the next... He could play a hijacker as in the next Steven Seagal movie, for example. That's something he could do. Or he could become, what else? A cut-price Omar Sharif impersonator. I'm sure there's a market for that at weddings and parties. What else could Humza do to get a proper job? But we're going to ensure that Humza gets a proper job, because this young man has never had a proper job in his life. His job has just been to mess up Scotland, and he's had enough. He's had enough of doing that, quite frankly. Yeah, anybody can think that. Send in, what could Humza do? What could Humza do? What is he going to do? What is he going to do? Ian thinks car insurance salesman. Yeah, that's right, couldn't he? Because, yeah, he could get a job with the DVLA, because he's got personal experience in not paying his car insurance, and he was driving a car without the proper documentation while he was the transport secretary. Okay, that's the hilarious element of it. Michael says that he's overwhelmed. Good stuff, Michael. Well, they're pretty good mints as well, I can tell you. That might just be all he does, Alan. He might just claim the dole. That might just be it. He'll be on, you know. DVLA clerk, yeah. Yeah, we need to get him. Let's get Humza working for the DVLA. We teach him some lessons about life as well. Teach him how to get up in the morning, you know, how to do a proper job, how to put in a proper 8 hours. Because he's never had that experience. And Ray says, of course, he's gobsmacked why Humza has got away with some of the outrageous remarks he's made in public. Well, yeah, how's he got away with that? Well, he might be our prison guard. That's what he's probably wanting to do. That's what he'd like to do, isn't he? He is, in fact, a kind of prison guard right now. He's enforcing the policing of our speech. And, of course, one of the things that he wants to do here is, you know, he'll dress it all up. He'll dress it all up in his usual way. But it's really about silencing. It's really about silencing opposition, okay? And if he can move the laws to such a point where it's actually illegal to disagree with anything he says, then he will do that, you know? Because once you go down that route, then you don't go back from it. You're constantly looking to see what more you can enforce. And you see people like ourselves and many people on our side, you know, we're like totally easygoing about things, and somebody says something that we don't like, it's, well, that's stupid, but I'm just going to, you know, let it fly. I'm not caring about it. But for these people, there's a certain type of people who've got like a totalitarian mindset, and they've really got, if they see something they don't like, they're like, really, I'm going to stop that person saying that, you know. That's how they look at it. You mustn't say that. They really want to control. You know, rather than just like, you know, live and let live, mate. you know. Oh, no, 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 no. That's not the way they want to do it. No, that's not right, and we're going to stop you saying that. What an attitude, but that's what they have. That's the attitude that they have. So at the Scottish Ejection on Thursday the 6th of May, let's give Humza the heave and get Humza out. Look at that ticker going along the bottom of the screen. That's brilliant, isn't it? That should be going along the bottom of Sky News. That should be. It should, absolutely. Latest news from Sky. At the Scottish Ejection, give Humza the heave. Purge the sturge, give Humza the heave, get Swinney in the binny, with Angus Robertson, the soon-to-be forgotten one. Yeah. Bill says, hasn't Anas Anwar from Labour made similar comments to Humza? Bill, yes, that's the unspoken truth about the matter. It's a little bit disturbing, a little bit worrying. We're hoping that he realises that's probably not a good move. It goes back to what we were saying earlier, that if you're going to take on somebody like Humza, you need to distinguish yourself very clearly from him. And you have to show where his ideas are wrong, and you have to go hard against his ideas. You can't be going along with him and expect also to beat him just because of the sheer force of your personality or something like that. No, you have to have better ideas, and you have to have better ways of expressing them. And we were glad to see Mr. Sarwar kicking out a Labour MSP candidate for Glasgow Kelvin, who said that she supported a second indie ref, okay? And she came out and gave an interview with The National to that effect. And I was glad to see that yesterday Mr. Sarwar jettisoned this person as a candidate. That person is no longer a candidate. So that's a good attitude, and that's the kind of thing that we need to see more of from him if he is to renew the Labour Party, because the Labour Party in Scotland has had a lot of good ideas, especially around economics and things like that, as far as the industrialisation of the country is concerned, and things like that. So they can still have an appeal, but they have to have it from like a British-wide socialist point of view, and they need to ditch the obsession with identity politics, and also realise that they can't actually beat the SNP when it comes to things like indie refs and trying to be more Scottish than thou sort of thing. You need to concentrate on the big British picture. And if you're a socialist party, you're looking at pan-British socialism. You're not trying to be like just like Scottish socialists alone. That's not going to win you any favours, because the SNP can do that a lot better than the Labour Party can at the present. So they need to concentrate on the British Labour element, and they also need to get rid of all the identity politics, because the SNP do that better than anybody, and it makes no point in the Labour Party going along with that. We here at A Force for Good are not going to be advocating that we vote for any political party. Look, we're gonna leave that up to our viewers. Some people will want to vote tactically in their constituency for the person that they think has got the best opportunity to beat the SNP. Some people will want to do that. That's fine. I can understand that. It's a fair point. Okay, so basically, thanks very much, folks, for viewing and taking part in today's programme. Have a great day. Now, we are going to be out again this afternoon at about 2:15. As soon as this programme finishes, I'm going to be getting this stuff ready. And we're going to give a very exciting programme this afternoon at 2:15, and that will be across all our platforms. So in the meantime, folks, please do share Please retweet, and let's get rid of the SNP at the Great Scottish Ejection coming up on the 6th of May. Alan, have a great day. We'll be ready to tune in later. Thank you for everybody who's been watching. Good number of folk watching this morning, and thank you for everybody who has given all your comments as well. We've been happy to see them. We haven't had the ability to read them all out because we were talking a lot about this situation that's going down today in the Scottish Parliament, the anti-free speech law that hopeless Humza is bringing in. However, we are going to punish him for that democratically at the polls. So watch this space, folks. Derek says, see you this afternoon. Good. Don't know to what extent we'll be able to interact this afternoon, but we will try our best. We're going to be under a little bit of pressure, but it's going to be good fun. And we've not been able to invite anybody else because, of course, at this stage, you're not allowed to do anything with more than 2 people. Isn't it wonderful to live in a democracy? Good. Okay, folks. It just remains for me to say thank you for watching. God bless the United Kingdom, and God save the Queen.